In the shadow of a crumbling Brooklyn tenement, where the wind howled through cracked windows and the stench of neglect clung to the air, Agnes Miller knelt by a dumpster. Her hands, gnarled from 70 years of toil, sifted through the trash for anything salvageable: cans, bottles, maybe a scrap of cloth to patch her threadbare coat. The winter of 2005 bit hard, and Agnes, a widow with no kin, lived on the edge of survival, her pension barely covering the rent for her one-room apartment. Her gray hair was tucked under a frayed scarf, and her eyes, though weary, still held a flicker of stubborn hope. That night, as snow dusted the alley, a faint whimper stopped her cold. She thought it was a stray cat at first, but the sound was too human, too desperate. Digging through a pile of garbage bags, she found a cardboard box, soggy and collapsing. Inside, wrapped in a stain towel, was a baby, blue-lipped, shivering, no more than a few days old. His tiny fist clenched as if fighting the world already. No note, no name, just a child abandoned to the cold. Agnes's heart, battered by a lifetime of loss, stirred. She could have walked away, called the authorities, and let the system swallow the boy. But something in his helpless gaze hooked her. She cradled him, her thin arms trembling, and whispered, "You're not alone, little one." She carried him to her apartment, the stairs creaking under her weight, and used what little she had, worn blankets, a pot of warm water, to keep him alive. She named him Eli, after the prophet who listened for God's voice, hoping he'd hear kindness in hers. Life with Eli was no fairy tale. Agnes scraped by, selling recycled goods and skipping meals to buy formula. Neighbors in the tenement, a mix of immigrants and working-class families, pitched in when they could: a can of soup here, a hand-me-down onesie there. Agnes never asked for help. Her pride wouldn't allow it. But she poured everything into Eli, teaching him to read from tattered library books, telling him stories of a world she'd never seen. "You're meant for more," she'd say, her voice firm despite the cough that grew worse each year. Eli, with his sharp brown eyes and quick mind, soaked it up, asking questions that made Agnes laugh and think harder than she had in decades. By the time Eli was 10, Agnes's health was failing. Her lungs rattled, and her hands shook too much to sort cans. Eli, small but fierce, took to the streets himself, collecting bottles and running errands for neighbors to help pay for her medicine. He never complained, but Agnes saw the weight on his young shoulders. One night, as they shared a meager dinner of boiled potatoes, Eli said, "When I'm big, I'm gonna take care of you, Ma." She smiled, ruffling his hair, but her heart ached. She knew she wouldn't live to see him grown. When Eli was 12, Agnes's cough turned to pneumonia. She lay in a hospital bed, her breath shallow, as social services swooped in. Eli, deemed too young to be alone, was taken to a foster home across the city. He fought it, tears streaming as he clung to Agnes's hand, promising to find her again. She whispered, "Be good, Eli. Be kind." Those were her last words to him before the system pulled them apart. Agnes died a month later, alone, her only legacy the boy she'd saved. Eli's teenage years were a blur of foster homes and hard lessons. He was a quiet kid, but his mind burned with ambition. Agnes's stories had planted a seed. He believed he could be more, not just for himself, but for her. He excelled in school, earning scholarships, and by 20, he was at MIT, studying tech and business with a relentless drive. He never spoke of his past, but Agnes's face was etched in his memory, her selflessness a compass for his life. Fast forward to 2025. Eli Kane, now 30, was a name whispered in boardrooms and splashed across headlines. He built Nexicorp, a tech empire revolutionizing renewable energy, from a dorm room startup to a billion-dollar company. Tall, with the same sharp brown eyes, he moved through the world with quiet intensity, his tailored suits masking the scars of his childhood. The media called him a mystery, no known family, no personal life, just a relentless focus on innovation and philanthropy. But Eli had a secret mission, one that kept him awake at night, finding the woman who'd saved him. He'd hired private investigators, combed through records, but Agnes Miller was a ghost, no living relatives, no digital footprint. All he had was a faded photo of her, taken when he was 8, her smile weary but warm. Then, a breakthrough. An old neighbor from the tenement, now in a nursing home, mentioned Agnes's name in a blog post about Brooklyn's forgotten heroes. Eli's team traced it, uncovering her story and her death. The news hit Eli like a freight train. He sat in his sleek Manhattan office, staring at the city skyline, and wept for the first time since he was 12. But Agnes's voice echoed, "Be kind." He couldn't repay her, but he could honor her. He launched the Agnes Miller Foundation, pouring millions into housing and support for the elderly and abandoned children in Brooklyn. He visited the old tenement, now a community center thanks to his funding, and stood in the alley where she'd found him. "This is for you, Ma," he whispered. The emotional climax came at the foundation's opening gala. Eli, usually reserved, took the stage. The crowd, politicians, donors, locals, fell silent as he told his story, not as a billionaire CEO, but as Eli, the boy from the dumpster. He spoke of Agnes, her sacrifice, her belief in him. "She had nothing, but she gave me everything," he said, his voice breaking. "Kindness isn't weakness, it's the strongest force we have." The room erupted in applause, but Eli's eyes were on the faded photo in his pocket. In the years that followed, the foundation transformed lives, just as Agnes had transformed his. Eli never stopped searching for ways to give back, driven by the memory of a poor elderly woman who saw a discarded life and called it precious. And in that act, she changed the world.